The Swiss are associated with being a peaceful people, at least recently. They're associated with Roger Federer. They're associated with all the kind of goodness in the world. I would think they were surprised on Friday morning to wake up to 39% of tariffs. These are one of the highest rates the U.S. has imposed on the entire world. My very first question this morning was, what is the U.S.'s beef with Switzerland? Have they ever tried their chocolate before? But this is a really big piece of the equation here. The Swiss are really big on pharmaceuticals. They have a massive, thriving drug-making industry, a lot of which gets exported to the United States. So similar to Joe Biden's agenda, Donald Trump is also trying to lower those drug care prices, and that includes targeting companies, having conversations with companies that are largely based in Zurich. I'm thinking Novartis, I'm thinking Roche, I'm thinking of a series of others that do actually make some really juicy profit margins, and that's where some of this lies. Now, this trade deal in particular, the 39% does exempt pharmaceuticals, but it is still getting back to a clear kind of worry around Switzerland specifically. That's also reacting to the idea that the Swiss franc has become a haven currency when the dollar continues to weaken, something that makes it very hard for Swiss people to have more purchasing power in this world. And that's something that Donald Trump isn't a fan of either.
Kriti, how's the, I guess, the tourist market in Europe this summer? Is it as crazy as it's been over the last several years post-pandemic? I'm thinking Americans just flocking over, maybe Tom Keene, I don't know, over to Europe. What's it like now?
I'm sure Tom Keene's on a beach in Barcelona somewhere. I wish I could tell you. I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to do some research for you, Paul. Okay. But one of the big questions here is ultimately, do you start to see this massive decline in tourism to America or even from Americans to Europe at the end of the day, especially because it is a little bit more expensive to travel to Europe when you have a weaker dollar. And we haven't seen that really change yet. There's a lot of domestic travel that's still very much afloat. We're seeing business travel take a slight hit in between the transatlantic relationship. But a lot of people are waiting for that domestic travel to start waning, especially as we talk about things getting a little bit more expensive, maybe a little less disposable income for vacations.
Of course, the drug makers. I know that's something Paul's pretty focused on here. And I know in the U.S., we're going to hear from Eli Lilly, Pfizer, Amgen later this week when it comes to opening those books and those earnings reports. But when it comes to on the trade front, Kriti, when it comes to drug makers are more shielded from what's going on with tariffs and which ones are more vulnerable right now?
Well, there's a series of them. They're all kind of vulnerable because they all have subsidiaries and massive businesses in the United States. So Roche, for example, which is a Swiss company, is also dealing with the letters that have been sent from Donald Trump to 17 drug makers around the world. They have a massive American business called Genentech as well. So everyone kind of has their hands in it because at the end of the day, the U.S. is the largest consumer base that they need to reach. So that has been something that's led to a lot of the gains here. But if we're looking in terms of who's actually at risk the most, I would keep an eye on Novo Nordisk. This was like the magic child, the Ozempic, the weight loss drugs, Eli Lilly's main competitor. They're not Swiss, they're actually Danish, but 60% of their revenue comes from the United States and is actually holding up the entire Danish economy. So if you start to see the likes of Ozempic, for example, get covered from Medicaid, which is something that's working its way through Congress right now, if you see Ozempic start to get tariffed because ultimately it is being brought in from abroad, that's something that's going to eat into some massive revenues that Novo Nordisk has been enjoying for quite some time.